good day and thank you for joining CivilNet. My guest today at the studio is the human rights defender of the Nagorno Karabakh Republic, Ruben Melikyan. Thank you, Mr. Melikyan, for joining us here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Since April especially, we've been worried about Nagorno Karabakh and we've been following the reports that come out of Nagorno Karabakh, especially regarding the four-day war. And during a lot of conversations with a lot of specialists, people put a lot of stakes on the fact that the human rights violations during the four-day war in Nagorno Karabakh will be a ticket or kind of a way of proving who's the aggressor or who's broken the laws. And for you, you took over the responsibility of the ombudsman like weeks after the Nagorno Karabakh war. I wanted to ask you, were you involved before you took on your responsibilities as the human rights defender, and what was it like to be appointed or taking over the office at such a crucial time?
Thank you. That's really a very important question to understand why I decided to go there and what connections did I have with Nagorno Karabakh, with Artsakh, as youth in Artsakh prefer this term. So prior to be elected by National Assembly of Artsakh Republic on 5th of May, I was heading the Academy of Justice here in Yerevan, and for about 2 years, 2.5 years. And from very beginning of my tenure in the end of 2013 as head of Academy of Justice, which is dealing with judges, prosecutors, investigators, one of my most important priorities was to create contacts with Nagorno Karabakh relevant entities, judiciary, prosecutor's office, and to invite them with the same, to take part in our classes with the same conditions. So because of that policy, we created that system, and in 2014, 2015, and now it's going on with new administration of Academy of Justice. We started to work with them very closely.
So whatever training the Armenian judiciary system or individuals were going through, it naturally also extended over to Nagorno
Exactly. I mean, not whatever training, but the trainings offered by Academy of Justice, which is mandatory training for all the judges, all the prosecutors, all the judicial servants, and prosecutorial servants, and bailiffs as well. So it's very large number of people who are involved, and we also invited our colleagues, and I think we already have very good results with them. Even candidates to prosecutors were involved, and we have already 2 graduates from Academy of Justice who were appointed as prosecutors in Nagorno Karabakh. That's very important because Nagorno Karabakh has very important issue of capacity. And the capacity building activities that we have in the Republic of Armenia are mostly not there in Artsakh, because international community usually, as rule, doesn't want to deal with Artsakh authorities because of political issues. But I was always in my own capacities very actively. I was trying to actively involve in Artsakh issues, and when in the early May of 2016 I was invited by Nagorno Karabakh authorities to consider whether or not I'm ready to move to Nagorno Karabakh in capacity of human rights defender, I didn't think long.
So in Nagorno Karabakh you mainly, currently at least, deal with war crimes, human rights issues deriving from the four-day war or the army, can we say that?
Okay, first of all, very small notice about when we say four-day war, it's already coined term, but I would prefer April war, the term April war, because we remember that in the 27th, 26th of April, there was another shelling of northern Artsakh, especially Martakert, and people who returned to their homes needed to flee back, to flee again, and so on. So it was not 4 days. The active phase was 4 days, but the whole conflict was in the whole April of 2016. So what I'm dealing with my capacity of ombudsman of Nagorno Karabakh, I'm doing the stuff that any other ombudsman is doing elsewhere in the world. I'm receiving complaints from the citizens of Nagorno Karabakh and other people concerning the activities of Nagorno Karabakh authorities. I'm trying to deal with that complaints, and I'm trying to formulate the recommendations for both executive and legislator, and why not for judiciary. So ordinary things that ombudsmen do, but in addition to that, for sure, that was my priority. I announced that in the 5th of May when I was when my candidacy was considered in National Assembly, that one of my priorities, my main priority, would be April War. And in the end of April, there was a preliminary report published by my predecessor, first ombudsman of Nagorno Karabakh, Mr. Ayrapetsian. And in the early days of May, another document was produced, which was civilians, which was dealing with issues concerning civilians, by the way, not only Artsakhian civilians, but also Azerbaijani civilians taking, I mean the fact that there were many cases where artillery and other weaponry was put in the villages, which was endangering,
not supposed to be, yes.
And which is against international humanitarian law. So now we are very closely trying to finish the report, the final report.
Mr. Melikyan, speaking of that report, I read it. I came across it. We published it as well, I think, from our segments of it. And looking at the report, a lot of the visual material, the photos that you used, for example, the case in Talish where they cut off the ears, it was a photo from Hetk, and a lot of it was from social media, also as evidence used. As in your capacity, do you lack resources to gather information as far as the Human Rights Office? Does the Human Rights Office have the capacity to actually go to the front line, go to these vulnerable places and document on its own?
Yes, exactly. The preliminary report, the interim report that you are mentioning, was based not primarily, but totally on open source resources. So there were no fact-finding by Human Rights Defenders Office then. Now we are conducting fact-finding. We are conducting large-scale fact-finding with different sources. We are asking authorities to share with us their information. We are going and conducting interviews ourselves. We are going to the places where everything happened, in the north of Artsakh, in Martakert region, in the south, in Martuni region.
Meaning, as the office, the capacity has grown, or
we do, and we are now collecting that information, trying to analyze the information, and will be. I don't want to name the dates, but it will not come soon. At least I'm not sure about 2016, but we are working hard and trying to be as soon as possible. In addition to that, we also are considering having another interim report on specific issues, because during our fact-finding we were dealing with shocking facts.
Are there more discoveries, more than
the
what
discoveries
we already know?
Discoveries, yeah, we have more discoveries. We have more precise understanding of what happened. And one of main main points that we are going to present is that almost all of Nagorno Karabakh Defense Army servicemen and civilians are all, without exception, who were in the hands of Azerbaijani military, either dead or alive, where if they were dead, mutilated the bodies, or if they were alive, they were killed and tortured.
Even the Red Cross mentioned this, but not in more detail. We came across, what's the connection with, let's say, Red Cross and other international organizations?
That's a very, very important issue concerning Red Cross. All of us need to understand the nature of the unique nature of Red Cross mandate. It's not an ordinary international organization like Human Rights Watch, like Amnesty International, who, by the way, are absent in Nagorno-Karabakh very pitifully. Human rights issues which are dealt by Red Cross and the unique mandate of them, which was also designated in international treaties like Geneva treaties, are giving them mandate to be impartial and neutral observers. If they speak about what they saw, if they give evidence, never ever any side of conflict who is not sure about his serviceman behavior, about his agent's behavior, will never let them to be there.
Their presence will not be required, or
not be let. That's why
allowed.
it's very strict rule of Red Cross. They see many things, but they never talk. They never talk. They can never present the evidence they collected. They have their own mechanism, which is not public, with the bilateral relations with the specific countries. And international tribunals have consistently approved that point. I remember, I think it was in Srebrenica case, genocide case, they with their eyes saw many things, and they didn't give any testimony.
Well, in this sense, I would like
what
to
I'm trying to say is that we cannot rely on the Red Cross information. Never.
So, you mentioned that Karabakh is unique in its makeup, and it is, given its situation. And so the Human Rights Office in Nagorno-Karabakh and its mandate, other than providing the same services as any other human rights office in any other country or republic would provide, do you have this extra weight on you? Because given that Karabakh is not represented internationally, your office, the ombudsman's office, might be one of the few offices that actually has a voice internationally, or that is not the case either?
That's a good question. During my about 5 months tenure, I had one international trip to Brussels. And I would like to point out that many partners, especially with Parliament, European Parliament, and so on, they were very openly discussing with me human rights issue in Nagorno-Karabakh. On the other hand, there were international organizations, especially international organizations, who either denied our invitation to talk, or they accepted it with the condition of no disclosure. I would say that it's very unique angle of vision of conflict, which makes us, which makes our voice, I think, sound and hearable, if we can phrase so, because we are not talking about political aspects of conflict. We are trying to represent the consequences of conflict as pure human rights issues. Our main point is that human rights are universal, And as long as they are universal, we cannot have people for whom the human rights are more universal and people for whom the rights are less universal. And we are calling international community to intervene with their presence in Nagorno Karabakh. We're not only talking about the consequences of April War, we are talking about general and genuine human rights issues in Nagorno Karabakh, which are not in a good shape because of international community in many instances, in many cases, doesn't want to deal with us. But there are people who are living there, their parents were living there, their ancestors were living there for hundreds and thousands, maybe years, and they are not. It's very unfair that they are in this kind of situation.
That it's ignored the history and the connection to the land. Mr. Melikyan, given that in Armenia as a bar association member, and you were so involved in advancing the rule of law, especially establishing transparency and also judicial ethics, comparing your experience within the Republic of Armenia and the Republic of Artsakh, are we facing the same issues?
You know what? That's a very subtle issue because no, we do have similarities and we do have also differences for sure. Some of the reasons of differences I already phrased. It's about international community's attention, lack of attention. On the other hand, there are very interesting and subtle factors as well which work. Look, Republic of Armenia is formed in the situation and in the place where for very long centuries people living here and who are living here are living people who whose ancestors were in Western Armenia, and because of genocide they moved to Eastern Armenia, and also people who were living here in this part of Armenian highland. And for very long they didn't have statehood, which makes them, I don't want to use genuinely, the term genuinely, but psychologically the relations between individual and the state was difficult, because the state was associated with foreign rule. Usually it was authoritative. It was the rule that you were trying to.
So people were more subject to the state.
And they were trying to. Okay, let's use the term cheat the rulers and so on, because there was not our Armenian rule, and for many other reasons as well, Turkish, Persian, and so on. In Nagorno Karabakh, the situation was different, because in the end of 18th century, up to the end of 18th century, there were semi-independent Melikdoms, princedoms as well. They were technically and formally part of Persian Empire, but there were no relations with them.
So it was Karabakh was more autonomous than.
Was much more autonomous and with self-governance. That's why the people of Nagorno Karabakh, the part of Armenians in the world, especially in Nagorno Karabakh, people are, I would say, by nature are more law-abiding because of that historical background. Okay, another issue that we could also phrase is that Nagorno Karabakh is a small country. Yes, we say that there are 17 UN members whose population was less than Nagorno Karabakh's population, but anyway, 150,000 people is small population, and that's why we have issues concerning the effectiveness of the state, effectiveness of the those who are responsible for administration. For the same reason, we have less problems with, for example, in judiciary, for example, with caseload of judiciary, and here in Armenia, that's maybe number one problem of, for example, judiciary, the caseload, that people need to wait for months and sometimes even years, yeah, for justice.
Also, the judiciary system doesn't enjoy a lot of public trust, because
I don't want to go there, because don't forget that I'm official of another state. But the caseload is one of most important issues, which we don't have in.
It's a problem that's
because of the numbers, and many other issues. We can talk very long about that issue, but I would say that societies are coming closer, and one of my, let's say, missions is to try to make societies closer to each other, because we are in Yerevan sitting here, always think about Nagorno Karabakh, but usually we think with abstractly. There are real people with their real face, with their real advantages and disadvantages, and so sometimes I understand that people here in Armenia proper and people in Nagorno Karabakh need to come closer to each other. Societies, I mean civil society institutions. And by the way, Armenia can do, and is doing for sure, much more for example, civil society of Nagorno Karabakh. I, with my Armenian counterpart and colleague, Mr. Tatoyan, are thinking about it. Mr. Tatoyan made a visit a couple of weeks ago to Nagorno Karabakh. Together we went conducted some part of fact finding and so on, and so one of our agenda was meeting with civil society of Nagorno Karabakh. Civil society is the main part of the statehood, which is in a worse off situation because of international community's lack of attention. And we are trying to somehow fix it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melikyan, and best of luck with your work. You have a heavy burden on yourself, and we thank the viewers for joining us as well. ＳivilNet frequently visits Nagorno Karabakh, brings you reports from as many angles and possible as we can, and you should visit one day as well, I suppose.
And you will, after that, you will visit again and again.
Again and again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.